Good morning. This week we're doing poppies, and I'm actually going to use as a reference one of the poppies I did in watercolor several years ago as a result of a Sterling Edwards workshop I went to. And he is one of the kings of negative painting. So here we are with the negative painting. I'm going to be using the same colors that we've been using all along. Ultramarine and manganese or cerulean, whichever you use. I'm using manganese because it's transparent. I have Prussian blue and or you can use indigo, one or the other. They're very similar. Cad red light, quinacridone rose, alizarin crimson, and Aurelian is a cool yellow, New Gamboge is a warm yellow, and as a kicker, kind of a quinacridone gold. So that's my spread of colors. I'm working on Fabriano Artistico hot press, 140 pound. And I like that because, and I don't know why or how I changed. Well, I do know. I went to different workshops. Anyway, I've just lightly sketched in, I don't know if you can see them, I've lightly sketched in kind of a semblance of some poppies. They may not even turn out like this because I'm not being religious about following my own reference here. But you'll see that I'm going to lay in some wet and wet colors, and I'm going to try to save some whites or lights, and then we'll build up the darks by negatively painting around stems and the flowers. Now, you remember from one of our still life references or demos that we had earlier on that we were doing, maybe you didn't do it, I don't know, but we were doing still lifes, and remember I did cups, and these flowers end up being very similar to the cups. I love the crepe paper quality of poppies, but they still kind of form like cups. And so that's kind of what I've drawn here. They're ellipses almost. And that's kind of a bird's eye view of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, an odd number. You want to have an odd number, 3, 5, 7, whatever. And then I'll be working as we go deeper into it with negative painting. I will stop and start because even though I'm doing a lot of wet and wet, I want it to dry in between layers so that I can capture some of these darker values without messing up my whites. I'm going to set this up, let this set up and dry before I go back in and start building layers. But I've got my initial washes down and we'll continue in a minute. Okay, I've mixed up a puddle of my blues. I've used my dark and my middle and my lighter blue. And it's a little bit runny, but that's okay. That's until I figure out how much of my negative painting I'm going to do with each pass. So I'm just going to, my thing with negative painting, if I have it still wet, I usually end up putting it too close to the wet part and then having it run. So I'm deliberately leaving some space between my blossoms and my background. Now I'm going to just tap some in as well, but I wanted to get an initial wash down of these middle blues. And now I'm going to start to tap in just little pieces that show maybe an indication of just a little bit of a leaf or something like that. So I'm doing a little bit of carving. I might not get it all in this path. Fact is, I want to wet this again. Keeping in mind that I'm coming down to the stems. You can see that I picked up a hunk of ultramarine blue. That's okay. And I'm just doing a little bit of potchki to show that there's some foliage back there. So each layer that you do when you're doing some negative painting is going to have more pigment, less water with each pass. I want that to look a little bit choppy to indicate that there's foliage back there. Now, you can see I've painted around a few things, and I have created some negative painting around stems like that. Now, the other way to work this negative painting is that you can go in and lift. It might be too wet for me to lift too much right now, but this is what I'm doing next. Just ghosting, they're ghosted back in there. It's grass or stems or whatever it is. They're not as strong as these. And as they dry, they might disappear a little bit. So I got some strong ones in over there, but these are going to just be a little bit softer and recede a little bit more. With most of your watercolor papers, certainly you can lift, but I find that the hot press lifts beautifully, and that's what I'm doing. And so I might even lift another leaf out of there. When you're lifting, you have to clean your brush a little more, because you don't want to reapply the paint that you've lifted. Now I'm going to go back into the buds themselves, and I'm going to mix it up and do a little bit of warm cad red light, juxtaposed by some of the cooler rose color. Actually, I think the alizarin crimson will do better. But it's warm and cool, and I'm going to just go in there and start to I'm trying very hard to, again, leave some of my whites and lights, because I'm going to go back in there with a rigger shortly. You see that my brush, happy accident, split. It's kind of interesting. And that helps create that um, crepe paper look that I was going to try to put in with a rigger, but I'll leave that just the way it is, actually. I'm using alizarin crimson and mix it with a little bit of my ultramarine. I've got my rigger now. It's a combination of my blues going into here, just so that there's color. It looks black, but it's not. It's color, but it's my darkest dark on here. I'm going to wait for some of this to dry, and then I'm going to lift a little bit out, and then I'm going to use my rigger to put some little crepe paper lines in here. Well, my hand isn't as steady as it used to be, I must say, but it's still just one of those fast and loose pieces. So this is just some stylized, if you will, stylized poppies. I hope that helped for you. I'm going to probably come in and clean up a few of these lines, but it just, I'm just going to let it dry and just go in and tidy it up a little bit. But that's it for now.